Welcome to this training session for the shop floor execution module, Creating a Part Routing. In this lesson about creating a part routing, you will learn best practices for the operation sequence numbering, how to create a part routing, and how to add an alternate routing. We'll start by defining routing notes and learning best practice for operation sequencing. Before we begin adding part routings, it is important to plan for future routing changes. Each routing is made up of operation sequences. Each sequence is a separate step in the manufacturing process. We recommend starting each part routing with operation 0010, 10. This leaves room to add steps before if necessary. Then each subsequent operation should be numbered in increments of 10 or more to allow for room to add operations between the original numbers. This prevents having to recreate the entire part routing in the future if changes need to be made. Now that we know what routing notes are, let's create a few. There are two types of routings that can be created. The main part routing, which is used for the standard manufacturing process, and an alternate part routing, which is an additional routing that can be used in lieu of the original routing. These are the steps we'll follow. From the System Manager, we'll select the Shop Floor module and then the Activity menu. Then we'll choose Part Routing, where we will enter a regular routing operation, so begin by choosing the Production tab and then the Shop Floor Execution module. The Shop Floor Execution window will open. From the Activity menu, select Routing. The Routing Maintenance screen will open. Now enter a part number for the Part ID field. Now click in the Operation Sequence field and enter the new Operation Sequence number. You can now enter an operation description. This is a 25-character field used to describe an operation or provide instructions to employees for completing the operation. For comment operations, all comments to print on the shop paperwork are entered here. We then need to determine what work center the work will be done in. Either manually enter a work center or double-click in the field to select one from the browser. When you double-click, the Work Center browser window will open. Find the work center you'd like to use and double-click to select it. Now we can add notes to the operation. See the training session on routing notes for more information on setting these up. To select a generic note, click the Generic Radio button. Now go to the Note Number field and double-click to see the available generic codes. The Generic Notes browser window will open. We won't be using a generic note right now, so we'll just close this window. For this operation, we will use a part-specific note. Click the Part Radio button and double-click in the Note Number field. We can now select the appropriate routing note for this operation. Double-click to select the one you want to use. Now click in the Quantity Per field and enter a number. Now we'll move on to the Runtime field. The planned runtime per unit is in hours, minutes, and seconds that are required to perform an operation. For a variable operation, runtime is entered as a batch size that is equal to the number entered in the Quantity Per field. Load is calculated the same as for operation type B, batch. Runtime times order quantity is quantity per. Let's talk about the Setup Time field. This is the planned time in hours, minutes, and seconds that is required to set up the operation. This number is usually independent of the number of parts needed to fulfill the order. Let's talk about the Planned Scrap Percentage field. This is the amount of scrap, expressed as a percentage, that you plan to have at this operation. If the yield calculation flag in shop floor configuration is set to yes, then this value will be rolled up through the routing when you perform a cost roll-up. The total calculated value will then overwrite the planned yield field in the Part Master file. Then enter a number in the Move Days field. Let's move on to Operation Type. The Operation Type list box defaults to Unit. The unit setting indicates that a job will be processed on a unit-by-unit basis. Another choice is B for Batch. The batch setting indicates that a job will be processed in batches of size quantity per. This allows for a per batch runtime, setup time, planned scrap percentage, and move days. C for Comment means that comment operations are printed on the paperwork as reference information only. Comments are entered in the 25-character operation description field. If comments require more than 25 characters, create several comment operations by incrementing the operation sequence number for each one. P. Part Identifier. Use this type of operation for process sheet paperwork only. V. Variable Operation. If this is a variable operation, the order quantity is converted to a quantity in the units used at the operation. For example, a furniture manufacturer generates a work order for 500 tabletops. 100 sheets of plywood are needed to complete the order because 5 tops are made from each sheet. The cutting operation is variable with a quantity per of 5. When the order reaches the cutting operation, the Q quantity is calculated as the order quantity divided by the quantity per for the operation, which is 500 divided by 5, or 100. After the plywood is cut, 100 units are posted complete to the cutting operation. SFC multiplies the units posted complete by the quantity per for the operation and moves a quantity of 500 to the next work center. You can review the shop floor execution user guide for more information regarding this setting. We're going to use unit for this example. The next field is Standard Type. Standard Type is a code used to identify how setup and runtimes were and are established. Standard Type is chosen from the Standard Type drop-down menu in the Routing Maintenance dialog box. Valid codes include M for MPR Calculated, I for Industrial Engineering Study, T Time and Motion Study, and E Estimated, which is the default. The runtime and setup time for this operation was determined by a time study, so I'll choose Time Motion Study. Let's talk about the setup type. This is added to the total planned runtime and becomes the basis for the total load, the total queue, and the total input calculations. Setup type is chosen from the Setup Type drop-down menu in the Routing Maintenance dialog box. Valid entries include B for Batch. For batch setups, Shop Floor Control calculates one setup per batch of size quantity per. For example, if order quantity is 90 and the quantity per batch is 15, there are 6 batches for the operation, which is 90 divided by 15. If the planned setup time is 0.5 hours, total setup time for the operation is 3 hours, which is 6 times 0.5. For daily setups, Shop Floor Control calculates one setup per day. This is based on the planned runtime per operation and the number of manned hours at the work center that is available per day. For example, if order quantity is 90 and planned runtime is 0.2 hours per unit, there are a total of 18 hours of runtime required for the operation, which is 90 times 0.2. If there are 12 manned hours per day at the work center, it will take 1.5 days to complete the operation, which is 18 divided by 12. If planned setup time is 0.5 hours, total setup time for this operation is 1 hour, or 2 times 0.5. Because it will take more than 1 day to complete the operation, that is 2 setup days. For order operations. For order setup, shop floor control calculates 1 setup for the entire operation. Order quantity is therefore not relevant to total setup. If planned setup time is 0.5 hours, total setup time is also 0.5 hours, which is 1 times 0.5. For costing purposes, the average order quantity, as entered in inventory part data, is used to allocate the setup cost for an order. The setup cost per unit is calculated as follows: planned runtime plus planned setup time. For unit setups, shop floor control calculates 1 setup per unit. For example, if order quantity is 90 and planned setup time is 0.5 hours, total setup time for the operation is 45 hours, which is 90 times 0.5. For this example, let's use order, which is 1 setup for the entire order. The tool reference field describes any tooling needed to perform the operation. Information from this field is included in the routing paperwork. For part identifier operations, enter the part identifier to be picked instead of the tool reference. Notice the checkbox for Update Part Revision. This box is cleared or set to No when a new part routing is added. When the part routing is changed, Max marks or sets to Yes this checkbox. If this is marked, Max saves the revision date and the level to the PartMaster file. The current date is saved in the PartMaster file when a part routing is changed. The routing revision date is also saved in the part routing file. It defaults to the system date on which the changes occurred, but may be edited either by typing a date or by double-clicking in the field and selecting a date from the shop calendar. Supervisor rights to routing maintenance are required to change this date. The effective date refers to the implementation date of a routing. For example, if planned runtime on a burn operation for part 1100 is changed from 0.1 to 0.2 on January 9th of 2001 with an effective date of February 1st, 2001, the change does not happen until February 1st. The effective date is saved to the part routing file for the operation sequence number. The operation revision date is the date of the latest changes to an operation. For example, if planned runtime on a burn operation for part 1100 were changed from 0.1 to 0.2 on January 9th of 2001, the operation revision date for the operation would automatically change to that date, January 9th of 2001. To change the operation revision date, double-click the revision date field, then browse and choose a date using the shop calendar. Next is the Include Setup field. Mark the Include checkbox in the Routing Maintenance dialog box to include the setup time in the routing. This does not affect the cost roll-up. Who approves these changes? In the Approved By field, type up to 3 characters to associate specific routings or revisions with specific shop floor control users or managers. The user-defined fields can be used to enter additional information you would like for this routing operation. That's it. We just need to click the Save button to save our work. In this section, we will set up an alternate routing. There are occasions when the standard routing to make a part cannot be used. Perhaps one of the work centers is closed for maintenance, or a different material was used, so a different process is required. To add an alternate routing, we'll follow these steps. Still in the shop floor module, we'll go to the routing screen. Then we will select a part with an existing routing operation, and we will select an alternate routing code, and then modify the routing operation as necessary. So from the Activity menu, select Routing, and the Routing Maintenance screen will open. We will enter a part number in the Part ID field. In the Operation Sequence field, we'll enter an existing operation sequence number. To add an alternate routing step, we'll first need to locate an existing alternate code for this part. Alternate codes are set up in the Bill of Material Part Master Alternate tab for the part. Double-click in this field to open the browser showing the existing alternate codes for this part. The Alternate Process Browser window opens. Double-click to select a code you'd like to use. We're now ready to make changes to the routing details for this alternate. For this example, we'll just change the work center by selecting one from the browser. When you double-click, the Work Center browser window will open. And we'll select the B-Test Work Center for this alternate. Then we just need to save our changes, so click the Save button. You can see both the original and the alternate routing step by double-clicking the Operation Sequence field to open the browser. When the browser window opens, you can now see that there are two routing setups for Operation 060. The first one is the original, and it has no alternate code. The alternate is also shown. When a shop order is created, you can select this alternate code, and all operations with this code will be used as the new routing. That completes our lesson on adding part routings. You should now understand the best method for numbering operation sequences, how to create a part routing, and an alternate routing. Thank you.